Hello, Ben Hartman here at Clay Bonham Farm. Welcome to this webinar. This is a webinar about paper pots. So the wide angle view is that paper pots, it's a paper product that comes from Japan, and they ship in this very slender form. And what you will do after they arrive is open these pots using these openers. And then what you have is a giant honeycomb of 264 cells that your plants will fit into. And then that honeycomb unravels into a chain, hence the term paper chain. There are also some non-chain paper pot options that I'll be going over in this webinar too. So welcome to all you home gardeners, all you market gardeners, and everyone in between at any scale. It's nice to have you here. Thank you to Niten in Japan for sponsoring this event. Niten makes this paper product, and Small Farm Works provided support for this webinar also. Clay Bonham Farm is our location. We're in northern Indiana, and we're in the back of a greenhouse that we just put into winter vegetables with our paper chains, and I'll go through those during this video. First, some pros and cons. What are some reasons you might want to use paper chains? My favorite reason is that they're fast. They save us $2,000 a year in labor is a conservative estimate that we came up with because it's so quick to transplant 264 plants. Number two is that paper pots are simple. It's simple to seed, simple to transplant, and the tool you see behind me, this paper pot transplanter tool, I've had mine since around 2015 and have had zero problems with it. No need to fix anything, and fairly simple to train anyone to use. Third is that you can germinate just about anything in these chains, and so we can trick out the seasons. It's hot for first week of October. It'd be difficult for me to get a lot of these crops to germinate, especially spinach over here. The soil temperature is just too hot to get good germination, consistent germination. However, I can have spinach in the ground at this time and up and looking nice because we have started it in paper chains and transplanted it. So it gives a small farm like ours a lot of flexibility and nimbleness. However, it's not for everyone. So I want to talk about a couple of cons and limitations of the system so you can decide whether it's the right thing for you. The first is that the paper chains do take some time to decompose. So there will be bits of paper in your soil. This is a certified organic system here. The non-chain pots have not yet gone through a third-party review, so they're not technically available for certified organic use, but the chained pots here are certified organic, and that paper does decompose. It just takes time depending on how much organic matter and how wet your soil is. For me, it usually decomposes within a couple months. Certainly by 6 months, we don't see many remnants left behind, but in different soil conditions, it can take more or less time. Second limitation is cost. The chains do have a cost, and you have to be at a certain scale, obviously, to make it to justify that cost. And the tool itself is going to be a cost too. However, you can unravel these chains, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute without the use of the tool. Third is that there is a bit of a learning curve. It is a new system. It's been in use in Japan for decades. It's fairly new to us in the US and in Europe. So hence this webinar. What I'm going to do is play two pre-recorded chunks. And what I did is I pre-recorded a seeding session and I pre-recorded a transplanting session. So I'm going to play the seeding session now. It'll take 10 or 12 minutes, and then I'll come back on and answer your questions. I want to have plenty of time for questions. And then we're going to show you the transplanting process and again, come back for questions. And as I play these pre-records, please be typing in your questions, and I'm going to be typing in answers as we go along here. So pre-record number one is how we seed paper chains. So I start my winter gardening in the propagation house in August. It can be hot in August, and why would you start a winter garden in the heat of summer? Well, because some plants need several weeks, couple months even, to grow and mature. The way I think of it is we grow our crops in late summer and in the autumn, and then we harvest them throughout the winter. And so I'm going to show you two paper chain systems from Nitin in Japan, and I'll show you what works for us. This is a system that lends itself well to those who are creative. You can use this with lots of different crops, lots of different ways of using it. I'll show you what works for me, and you certainly don't feel like you have to copy what I'm doing, but the beautiful thing about gardening, as I've said, is that you can have a garden that matches your personality, matches what you like to grow and eat, what your family wants you to be growing. So this is called a non-chain paper pot. And what is happening here is these are shipped over, very compressed, and at, I think, a good value. And then you open them up with these green openers. And in this case, there are 72 pots in here. They're called non-chain pots because they're not going to unravel in the chain. These are going to come apart individually, and I'll show you that later in our training. And so our first step is to choose. You have 72 cell option. You have a you have 128 cells. This is a 50 cell option, and you have another 72 cell option. So depending on how large of pot that you want is the size of chain that you would choose. 72 is what we like in our home garden. You can get a lot of plants in a small space, and you can see that here. We have some specialty turnips that we're going to be growing in our home garden. I don't have chefs and wholesale customers for these, but just around the house we'll be popping these in. And as I said, these will come apart one by one, and I'll show you how that will work. But it's a great way to avoid plastic in the garden. So first step is to open these up and put these on in your tray. These are the same trays for that we'll use for the chain paper pots. So like I said, those are non-chain paper. And then I'm going to fill this up by hand. I like to use Vermont Compost, a Fort Light potting mix. It's a nice light potting mix, and in addition, I'm adding 1 quart per 10 gallons of fine vermiculite to the mix to really lighten it up. So this is our fine vermiculite here, and it's going to loosen up the potting mix, and works very nicely with these. It helps to have a nice loose mix to go into these chains. But many types of potting mix will do. And I like to keep a drywall knife handy here just to scrape things off. You can certainly do it by hand. You can use a brush too. And I like to really kind of make sure there's good pressure, especially in the corners. Then use that knife. Clean it. And then we very quickly filled 72 cells without resorting to plastic. And these can then be removed and used for your next chain. So easy peasy, lemon squeezy, as my 9-year-old son would say. And then I simply make divots by hand here using a 3-finger technique. If you're better than me, you might do 4. Well, there I did 4 kind of okay. And that passed. Anyhow, so they're ready for your seeds to drop in. And so I'll just do a quick sample here. I would grab seeds by hand. And in the case of turnips, I like to put 3 to 4 seeds in a cell. This is spinach. I also like to have 3 or 4 seeds of spinach in. I'm going to roll those in. And I'm not going to finish for the sake of time in the video here. But the next step would be, I like to use this fine vermiculite again to cover in those seeds. And so I would just pour that vermiculite over top the seeds and give it a quick brush by hand. Okay, so these are the non-chain paper pots, great for home garden use or if you have a particular spacing that you have for your crop. And I should say they're great for peppers and tomatoes. Use those bigger 50 cell non-chains for bigger crops. So next I want to show you how 90% of the crops on in our winter garden at Clay Bottom Farm are grown using these compressed paper chains. So again, they ship compressed, and we're going to open them up with these openers. There are 2-inch, 4-inch, and 6-inch spacing options. This here happens to be the 2-inch option. Going to grow spinach in this. And I keep several frames out here. And this simply opens up onto that frame. It just takes a few seconds once you've got the routine. And then that can be flipped upside down into the tray. Now note that I keep a cheat sheet out here telling me what size chain, how many seeds per cell, how many trays per bed that we have. So it's all a very streamlined system, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of that in a follow-up email if you signed up. So what we're going to do is the same thing, just going to dump potting mix over top. Going to really crush it into the corners, along the edges, make sure we're well filled here. My potting mix is nice and evenly moist, but it's not real soppy. It's best to be a bit on the dry side even. If anything, we're a little bit wetter than we need. And then again, I'm going to use this drywall knife to really clean it. And what I'm looking for is I want to be able to see the hexagon pattern. Hexagon pattern on here, and the reason is this next step I'm going to be pressing using a dibble board, pressing 264 dibbles in here, so you can see that's a bit more efficient than doing it by hand. And now we have a nice little pocket for our seeds to drop into. I'm using the gravity seeder. Small Farm Works version. I buy all my supplies from Small Farm Works. They've been great to work with, as I can order in small batches, and if I got questions I can call them up and get those quickly answered. And what I'm going to do is dump my seeds, this in this case spinach, down here. And spinach is the queen of winter. Spinach loves to grow on the backside of the calendar. It almost requires colder temperatures to grow well. And so I am doing this on a weekly basis. I'm seeding spinach in here in these paper chains. It's so difficult anymore to get spinach, to get consistently good germination on spinach direct seeding it, because it just requires 2 weeks of cold temps, and it's hard to know if we're going to get that in the fall. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and drop seeds in. And there I've quickly dropped 264 seeds in here. And I want to know, if I want to know how many seeds to drop in, I'll go to my chart. It says I want 3 to 4 seeds per cell. And so I'm going to go ahead, and this is Seaside spinach. It's a wonderful spinach. It stays sweet, and the leaves never grow big. They stay nice and compact all winter. We don't get that elephant ear spinach that we can sometimes get with other varieties. So there, we're going to do it twice, and here we got a third press. And we'll do one more for good measure. And then I'm guaranteed to have at least 3 to 4 seeds in each. And there we have it. So next I'm going to return leftover seeds. Takes a bit of coordination here. You could use a bucket or a funnel or more sophisticated way of doing it. but that's how I get it undone here. So next we're gonna throw this vermiculite over top. Gonna do a little crisscross pattern and then quickly cover top with that vermiculite. Now there's good moisture in our potting mix, and so in this case I'm actually not going to need, frame can come out at this point, but I'm not going to need to water it because there's good moisture in here. However, if I do need to add some water to it, I like to always bottom water these paper chains. And I know there's a lot of ways to do it, but this is the cleanest and simplest that I know of. Paperpot.co, Modern Grower, sells these nice impervious trays that exactly fit this system. And then I would simply fill about a quarter of an inch or half an inch of water in here and let it soak. And that's going to percolate up and keep that soil nice and moist. Okay, let's go in and I'll show you where we are germinating these crops. So we're walking around to our processing room, and on the way there, we've got this germination chamber. And all this is we have a refrigerator, and we've got this set for spinach, about 65 Fahrenheit, in the mid 60s. And I'll leave those seeds in there for 4 days or so until we see germination. And then we'll pull them out, but let them stay nice and cool. We got an Inkbird external thermostat controller here, and the fridge is plugged into the Inkbird. And essentially when it gets above 65 Fahrenheit, it's going to kick on the compressor here and keep us at optimum temperatures for excellent germination. Spinach, a lot of these winter crops, this is so crucial. A lot of these winter crops, cilantro, spinach, and many others, and lettuces require cool. They require cold, several days optimally of cool temps, mid 60s or so for great germination. So this is really the only way we can do this time of year. September, even in October, we are getting warm afternoons that will impede germination. So once this is finished, or once we see the seeds start to pop, we're going to bring them into here and grow them all summer, or late summer and early fall in here. And so this is our winter garden in here. We do this on a weekly basis, and so there are constantly crops coming in and out of here. But these are simply grow tents. I'm right now using the Walden tents made by Active Grow that are designed just for this purpose. And so they've got optimally sized shelves, and the grow light spectrum is just perfect for the types of crops that we're doing. And this is in a room that is cooled. We do have an air conditioner, it's insulated. So ideally this would be in your house. It's not sitting out in a barn or a shed and getting too hot. So especially for winter gardening, that's really crucial. So it's never gonna get much above the low 70s in here because this is a conditioned room. So after seeds have popped and germinated, they're in here for another week or two. And again, that chart will tell you how long those crops are in. But let me just do a rundown of crops in the tents, and then we'll, in part two, we'll go out and show how these get transplanted. But I do grow microgreens. This is radish, sprouted radishes here, and these would be sunflower shoots for a couple of restaurants, and we like to have them in the house. And these are not in paper chains, but I do use everything else from the N10 system. We got the bottom watering trays here and the other trays that they go into. This is lettuce. Lalique is a wonderful fall winter lettuce. It gets nice and crunchy. We've got 6-inch paper chains in here, Lalique, a couple of them. And we've got evergreen bunching onions, wonderful fall winter crop. They'll keep going late into the winter, maybe even over winter if you got them on the south side of your house. We've got spinach, which we just got done seeding, so you can see what that looks like after that comes up. Some home garden stuff. We've got some kales, another type of spinach back here, and more turnips. And these again would be in the non-chain pots. And then some more onions. let me show you how we go about our watering in here. I explained the bottom watering system. I showed you with a hose. Ideally, you actually have probably something like this, a pitcher to water underneath. And what we're going to do is, like I said, just put 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of water down here. And that's all you need. And that's going to sit and soak it up. And after 3 to 4 minutes, I'll simply come along and prop the tray up like this so that it drains. You don't want your roots sitting in a pool of water. But after 3 or 4 minutes, there won't be water down there. That water will have soaked up. But you still want to have let air get to the roots. And you see what's happening here. If we did not let air get to the roots, there'd be a thick mat of roots down here and a mess. And so by air pruning, by letting air get to the roots, it kills the roots off down here. We don't have roots twisting up in the pots, and we have nice, healthy, as you can see, nice, healthy, even growth, disease-free transplant. So it's really a slick system, a minimalist system. We have 264 cells in here, so 750 plants times 8 actually. So we have easily more than 5,000 plants in a 2 foot by 8 foot section of our room here. So it's very space efficient, very energy efficient, and as we're going to show you in the next video, it's actually pretty darn efficient to transplant too. Okay, hopefully you got a thing or two out of that explanation. I was typing as quickly as I could, but did I miss anyone's questions? Does anyone else have questions about the seeding stage and growing out these transplants with Paperpot system? And I'll read your question on here so others can hear it. Have you experimented with using one tray to germinate more than one type of seed? For instance, radish with lettuce. Are there tips or tricks? I have tried, and to be honest, I haven't been able to make that work real well. I do seed sometimes a red head lettuce with a green head lettuce if their growth rates are fairly similar, and get away with that. But something like radish with lettuce, pretty tough. The transplant window here is a little bit narrow. Most crops I'm transplanting very young, actually, when they're 2 to 3 weeks old. And sometimes you've got a window of less than a week to get a crop in before it sort of outgrows the paper chain. And so that's the reason it's a little tricky to multi-seed one tray. Great question. Okay, does anyone else have questions on that stage of the paper potting? Okay, if not, we're going to keep typing your questions in. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to walk out to the field. I'm going to give you a farm tour just to show you what we've got in the ground that we'll be harvesting through the field crops, certainly oftentimes through Thanksgiving. And then I'm in the greenhouse here, and we'll harvest all winter in here. But it's using this paper chain system for quick turnover, quick turnaround. Every couple of weeks, we're seeding and transplanting, so we have a continuous harvest. I'm the behind-the-scenes farmer for 4 high-end restaurants here in Goshen. Work closely with those chefs and figure out what they want, when they want it, how much, and basically work for the restaurant. So we really dial in our precision and plant exactly the right number of crops and have them available for a wide season with Paperpots, which is one reason that I like to use them. Ryan asked, do you go straight from the grow tents to the field? Do you have a hardening off period? I'm going to address that a little bit in the next video, but the answer is no, I do not harden off crops. What I do is I transplant, then put a shade cloth over them for a week and a half, 2 weeks to let them settle in. And that's my way of cheating, working around hardening off. Justin asked, are there plates available for the drop seeder and the non-chain pots? I'm going to let John Henriksen answer that question. I've not used them myself, but John from Small Farm Works, I believe, is on the webinar. And John, if you can type Justin a question, appreciate it. Okay, let's head out to the field and show you how the transplanting part of this system works. Welcome to Clay Bottom Farm Fall Garden Walk. And what I'm going to do is show you the plants that we've got in the ground ready to go for winter. And we certainly would move into the greenhouse. It's late September here, and we're about ready to start planting in the greenhouses, but many of these crops will, in some cases, go well past Thanksgiving, if not into the new year, if we give them the right protection, even without a greenhouse. The first one is kale. This was actually our spring planted kale. I have found that we don't actually need to do 2 kale plantings as long as we've got a healthy kale plants that we're able to push through the heat of July and early August, and they really start to regrow and perform well for us, well past Thanksgiving, even outdoors in some years. So of course, if you want to go beyond that, then you might want to have a row or 2 in a greenhouse or more protected structure. Another one that we take, that we've been able to take up to Thanksgiving, even outside, is lettuce if it's well protected. So this would be Rubigo, a nice red lettuce, and Lalique is our favorite green lettuce. I'll show you some more mature varieties. These are paper pot crops, okay? The kale you could do as paper pot using 12-inch chains, or you can hand transplant your kale. These are 6-inch chains. The basil that you see here went in with 6-inch chain paper pots. Our beds are 42 inches in width, or 1 meter in width, and about 35 feet in length. This would be spinach. The little white fluffies here are cottonwood, but that'll come off in the wash. And I have this on here. This is a burlap, 7-ounce burlap that we use as a shade cloth. And it's actually about time to take that off, probably today or tomorrow. We're seeing much cooler weather ahead. But until it consistently, we can have temperatures below the mid-70s in the afternoons, I keep that shade cloth on spinach. And as you can see, it grows just fine underneath a shade cloth. We're going to step over this. Here is our Sumi soaker system here. It's our irrigation system. It's simply a tube that has lots of small perforations in it. And then there's this clip here. And I've cut 3/4 inch conduit or EMT pieces, pounded those in the ground about 6 or 9 inches, and then to raise this tube up, but have very nice even irrigation. It works very well in complement with the paper pot system. So this is more Lalique lettuce, paper pot transplanted. Parsley is really popular with our chefs. I'm the behind the scenes grower for on a weekly basis 3 to 5 high-end restaurants. We work very closely with chefs, and they help choose the varieties even in a lot of cases, but this is a very popular one here. Cilantro, I'm going to show you how to transplant this in a minute. Can grow well into the fall. Loves that cool weather. These would be green onions. I transplanted these with 2-inch paper chains, 3 to 4 seeds in each cell, and works just a wonderful. I wouldn't think of doing green onions without the paper pot system. Just a wonderful way to do it. This is seaside spinach. What I showed in the first video was seeding this crop, and what we have here is a leaf that never really gets much bigger than the palm of your hand, and has done really well deep into winter for us. And we like that smaller leaf size for our chefs and salad mix, and just for our own eating too. Next, we have more seaside spinach covered with shade cloth here, and more mature cilantro here, more mature basil plants here. So you see a theme here. We have different size crops, and every couple of weeks we're seeding or transplanting, so we have something consistent for our customers. And here's some less mature Lalique and some red lettuce here, and we've got some direct seeded kales and a variety of other crops. But this is essentially our fall and winter garden that we'll be able to munch off of for a couple months here, we hope. And to protect the most sensitive crops, the basil won't be able to protect. Once it gets cold, that'll be done. But these other crops, we can use floating row covers, and I'm doing more experimenting with burlap, using 1 or 2 layers of burlap as a sheet protection for these crops. And you can certainly additionally protect your leaves by using wire hoops instead of just floating the row cover. You can see we've bent our own hoops over top the winter crops, and I like to have these 90-degree corners on here so that the cover's not ideally touching a leaf. At the edges we have a nice clean tent. Okay, so I want to focus today on soil preparation and how do we grow healthy transplants using paper pots in all soil, in all kinds of soil. One of the realities is in Japan, and I was just in Japan last October, the soils are very different than they are here. They had a nice silky consistency, texture to them, and tilling is more common in Japan perhaps than among some of the small farmers in our circle anyhow. And so if you want to use a no-till methodology, and if you have rocky soils, sandy soils, clay soils, how can you make this tool work? That's going to be my focus. Let's get right into it. So my first tip is to make sure that the ground is loose, at least the length of your fingers, so 3 to 4 inches. And in this case, we're pretty close here. And I had pulled some lettuce out of here a day or so ago, but if you've got ground that's stiff, such as between these onions, I can't get my fingers in with a firm press down 3 or 4 inches. I would have to dig. So you shouldn't have to dig. You should be able to just press and get down 3 to 4 inches. That's kind of a simple litmus test to know whether your soil is loose enough. So if you have heavy clay, or maybe heavy silt soils, what I'm going to recommend is that you do some gentle tillage, and you don't need to get out a BCS rototiller. You certainly can. There are some manual ways of doing that too. For years on our clay soils with paper chains, I simply used a wheel hoe with some sweeps. Haas company sells sweeps. This is a wonderful TerraTech wheel hoe that has a Planet Junior cultivator attachment on here. And essentially what this is going to do will let me go down that 3 to 4 inches to provide the loose soil at the depth that we need. Okay, I realize I'm a bit cheating here because of this soil is already fairly loose, but let me just demo in the pathway that it is possible to do this by hand. So you will get a nice cardio workout, and you'll have nice firm upper body muscles by the time you're done, but it is very possible to do that by hand. And sometimes I get at that tool and I'm feeling like I need a workout, and I'll just choose manual over automated just for the fun of it. This is another way to do it. This Tillmore EOX has the battery packs. It's a battery powered tool. We don't actually use gas engines in the garden here. We're an all electric farm. And what we're doing is using cultivator shanks. I'll speed this up for the sake of the video. And I don't mind stepping in the bed a little, but using cultivator shanks to get us down that 3 to 4 inch depth that I was mentioning. We're not needing to go 6 or 8 inches deep. We're not planting carrots. I should say, unless you're planting carrots or a root crop, that you need that kind of depth. But for all of these winter crops that I've mentioned, will do just fine with just a couple inches of soil looseness. Now, in most cases, we're good. That's loose enough. I'll simply take a rake. I like this Austrian bed rake. Johnny sells this tool. TerraTech also sells a version of the tool. And rake it fairly smooth. It doesn't need to be perfect for the paper chain, but would take out some of the ridges. If you feel like after a bit of cultivating, you're still don't have the soil loose enough, or if you have a soil that tends to clump, we've had quite a bit of rain here, and so there are some clumps I wouldn't mind breaking apart, this sort of thing. Or if we are paper potting directly after spraying compost, and there might be some chunks in the compost. Let me show you a couple of ways that you can loosen the soil. This is a TerraTech tool. It's called a wheel weeder, and it's really almost like a rototiller. The soil's a little bit wet optimally for this tool, but it does a good job of slicing underneath your weeds for weeding, but also for soil prep. I've found that it can provide a nice loose tilth or nice structure to your soil surface. Most of the time, I'm using this 11-inch tool to do paths, and so I would weed pathways, and it does a great job of pathway cleanup around the farm. Okay, so let me show you one more tool before we start getting into transplanting. This would be a tilther. I like the Johnny's version. It's worked well for me. And this is if you need a bit more teeth, a bit more power, and it's going to create a very loose, fluffy surface. And you will have no issues with the paper potter after using this tool here. You can see just a real quick down 2 passes. We're just going 2 or 3 inches deep. We're not doing deep tillage here, but that's going to guarantee that the paper potter will work. Of course, you can use a BCS tiller, more aggressive tools for doing all this if you want, but I found it's not really, in our case, it has not been necessary to use a rototiller before paper potting. So we're just going to make sure we're a little bit smooth, and then I'm going to get out the paper pot tool. So we've got this wonderful transplanter here, which we can use, and we have the option of pulling these chains out by hand. And let me just show you what that looks like first. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to transplant the whole chain, but we'll get a portion of her done. And for transplanting, I don't mind stepping on the beds. And I've got 5 rows. So I'm going to start with 1 row in the middle. And this contraption here, oops, get something there. This contraption here this is part of the Connecta tool set that Johnny's sells. Creates a nice little furrow. You can use a hoe too. And just to show you, if you're not ready to invest in the tool and just want to try the chains, how that will work. These chains, these are 4-inch space chains with cilantro. So we're just going to line this up, and then you would simply pull by hand and to do your transplanting. And then you can, I usually would fill in by hand too if you're using this method. And then the paper obviously rips. And you just tuck those guys in by hand. It really speeds up your hand transplanting and gives you that optimum spacing that you're looking for too. Okay, let me show you what that process looks like with the tool. So we're just going to line up here. I usually like we're going to go pretty deep. You can set your depth adjustment. Most versions of this tool let you adjust the depth here. And I would say too that it might be worth considering you can buy a deeper furrower. And this is the deeper furrower attachment. Small Farm Works sells a version of this too that lets you go just a little bit deeper than the standard furrower that comes with the tool, which can help in difficult soil conditions to make sure that you're going deep enough. So we're gonna pull that same tray, the same tray that we just hand transplanted. These guys are a little on the leggy side, but it should be okay. Okay, we're gonna pull these wheels up here. So this first stretch, you'll need to tuck in by hand. And it's a little bit awkward because we hand transplanted the first part of the row, of course. Okay, then you can put down the press wheels if you want and start pulling. We might make some adjustments as we go here. But no, that depth is about where I want it. And we've got nice sprouted seeds. As the years go on, I transplant sooner and sooner. And most crops are going in within, certainly under 3 weeks, sometimes under 2 weeks, depending on how their growth is doing. And they tuck in very quickly. I've got 5 rows that I'm doing here, so I'm simply going to turn this direction. I've got my middle row. I'm going to do an outer row here. This is exactly how I did the onions that you see right beside me here. I got 5 rows on those onions, 5 rows on this cilantro. Gonna tuck in this first little bit here, and then otherwise let the tool do my transplanting for me. So the only thing that changes crop by crop is perhaps depth. When I'm transplanting green onions, my chefs like to have a long white shank. And so I would set this tool to transplant as deeply as it can. And with lettuces, I plant a little bit shallower so I'm not covering the leaves. So usually there's a little bit of touch up to do. You can see that maybe there was a rock down here. Not sure what happened, but there's a little bit of hand touch up to do. And I might go along and straighten some of these up that have flopped. And there you have it. You can quickly get a fall garden planted in one afternoon, even if you have the right timing. Okay, before we close, I want to show this hand transplanting with the non-chain pots. As I showed you in there, we had seeded turnips. And this is the same type of paper product, but it's not attached to another cell. They're plug. These are just independent. And they come apart, and we would simply pull them out. They come out very easily. They come apart from one another very easily. And we would tuck these in here. And for turnips, I like about a 6-inch spacing. Those pull apart so nice. It's a little wet, like I said, we've got a lot of rain. But a general rule for transplanting is keep the soil as wet as you can when you're transplanting. And get those pots, or get your plugs nice and moist too. So you have wet plugs going into wet soil is how you have the best luck. And there is a point at which, of course, your soils and your plugs can be too wet. So we'll do one more here, and that should give us a nice stretch of turnips. Now, we have our home garden up by the house, and this is how we would transplant a lot of crops around our home garden where we want more specialty crops or a smaller quantity. It doesn't make sense to have a full length of chain, so there's options for everyone here. Okay, hopefully that cleared some things up about how the transplanting stuff work. You all have been asking really great questions. I want to make 2 plugs here before I close out with another quick demonstration of some green onions. One is that the masterclass is 40% off this month. It's a lean market growing masterclass, great for serious home gardeners too. And check it out, it's on the website. And second plug is we have an on-farm workshop first weekend of May, and enrollment is open for that. And it sells out every year, so sign up early if you're interested in coming. Thank you again for everyone who has attended. Appreciated your attendance and your interest in this system. And Nitin asked me to share about it because I am actually genuinely enthusiastic about it. It's made it possible for me to farm for a living, to stay on the farm, especially with winter production. So I wanted to show one other tip here is with green onions, and keep typing your questions in. I'll come back to them. But what I like to do before transplanting green onions is give them a haircut. So here we have a nice long Fiskars scissors. Gonna give them a haircut just before transplanting. And these sell like hotcakes to chefs, especially if you can hill them like I mentioned and provide a nice long white shank. But it's really hard to do these without the Paperpot system. So let me throw these in the paper potter here. I started these on the 3rd, on September the 3rd. So these are a bit older than I usually would transplant. I wanted to save some for the webinar here. And these are the hemp chains. I know there's quite a bit of discussion on the hemp chains versus standard chains. And so there you see that the chain did actually just come apart on me. I was pulling pretty hard. So the hemp chain does have that limitation that it will sometimes come apart. And in part, what happened is that I really gave these a good hard soaking too. And what I'll do is I'll start my furrow out here. And you can see some other onions in the ground down here. And these are about 2 inches apart. And I've got 4 or 5 seeds in each. And well, I tell you what, I'm having some trouble with these. I let them sit too long for the webinar and they're not coming out. So there you go, lesson learned. Don't over soak your hemp chains. But I did want to show you that tip about cutting off those spring onions. And we'll grow those about once a month all year actually for our chefs. Okay, I had a couple more questions coming in that I wanted to get to. There's some questions about new transplanters, and I do know that different companies make different versions, and there are new ones coming out all the time. John is probably more up to date on that, and so refer to John's answers on those. Someone has a question here. I've read Lean Farm and Lean Micro Farm, and they've been helpful for your business. Thank you. Thank you. I'm currently working through Lean Dairy Farm, and it's great too. Is the masterclass so focused on microscale market gardening that I would have a hard time doing the mental gymnastics to make the info relevant to our ranch? And the first part of the masterclass is a general instruction on lean applied to a farm, which would apply to you as a rancher or any size and type of farm. And then there are also several lessons or segments in there that are specific to where I talk about how far apart to space tomatoes and that sort of thing, which would require mental gymnastics. And so you might want to check out, I do have on the website a list of the modules that are in there. And I'd suggest that perhaps half of them would be applicable to any size type of farm, but there's quite a bit of content geared toward the grower community. Do you grow storage onions with Paperpot chains? I do, and actually that's what's, not sure you can quite see it, but that's what's behind me here. I'm not gonna get a great view, but these are Bridger onions behind me that we transplanted 4-inch spacing, and we'll transplant those out 3 to 4 weeks old. And I do my seeding in August, transplant in September with the Bridger onions, and then we'll have a harvest around May. So they'll grow all winter in the greenhouse. Do you know if we can have access in Canada to all the Paperpot kit? Well, John does ship to Canada, so I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be able to get anything we've been talking about here. Which types of seeds are not good candidates for the Paperpot system? That's a great question. And someone else had asked, do we grow, oh, I'm sorry, I just answered that, storage onions. The seeds that would not make sense with the chained paper pots would be the widely spaced crops, such as peppers and tomatoes, pumpkins and watermelons. Those still, to my mind, make sense to transplant those by hand. And so it's more more tightly spaced crops, 6 inches or tighter spacing that makes sense with Paperpot. Although there is a 12-inch space paper chain system too that you can look into. You do have to buy different seeding equipment with that, but I've got a good friend in an hour north of here who does a lot of brassicas, kales and broccolis and such using the 12-inch paper chain system. We missed the beginning of the lesson. Why do you use Vermont compost? Yes, all of our potting mix is the Vermont compost for light. And in addition, we add one yogurt container, 1 quart, I guess, of vermiculite per about 10 gallons of Vermont compost potting mix to further loosen it up. And we found that with a small size of these paper chains, to have a really porous, loose potting mix seems to help. What about kale? Is that with paper chain? For me, it isn't, because I space my kale at 18 inches. Having said that, I know growers, and I grow winter boar kale that's in the ground for 9 months, and so it gets huge, and I just need to give it that extra space. I do know growers who grow more medium or baby size kale that will use paper chains, maybe the 12-inch chain or even 6-inch or smaller, depending on the size of plants that you want. But for me, I still hand transplant the kale. Okay, thank you, everyone. I think our hour is nearly up. You're going to receive an email, some links, and you can stay in touch with me through the website. You can ask me questions, and you'll be able to watch a recording in this video too. Thank you again, everyone. Have a good night and keep on growing.